David Moyes, the chosen one? Nah, the frozen one. Stuck in time while the spine came undone. Ryan Giggs, 4 games deep, 2 wins, no plot. Winger on the touchline, tactics, forgot. Louis van Gaal, came in philosophy, sold dreams with flair, but turned attack into static, square after square. José Mourinho, the special one? Nah, the cynical sage. Set-piece merchant with a press room rage. Ole Gunnar Solskjær, rode Bruno and bounce backs. No patterns, no press. Folded in structure, but thrived in the mess. Michael Carrick, kept shape tight, let the boys just play. Left too soon, might have held sway. Ralf Rangnick, gegenpress guru with no in-game glue. The press was a mess, and the squad never knew. Erik Ten Hag, Ajax-born brain with Cruyff in his code, but found Prem nights hit harder than the road. Ruud van Nistelrooy, 4 games, 3 wins. Cynical touch. Forward-turned gaffer, didn't say much. Rúben Amorim, modern mind with a back 3 twist, but Prem ain't a Liga, they don't coexist. Could be the one, or more false dawns. 10th short of glory, same old songs. 10 man, 1 poison throne, and over a decade of chaos, pressure, and broken promises. But what if you've been too harsh? What if each of these managers, no matter how flawed, actually had a case? What if they weren't the problem? This isn't revisionism, this is the other side of the story, the full context, the chaos behind the curtains, the players, the board, the false rebuilds. This is Unpopular Defense, and this is the defense of the fallen managers. There are legends in football, and then there's Sir Alex Ferguson. When Ferguson took over United in 1986, the club wasn't a giant, it was sleeping. 1 FA Cup in 2 decades. Mediocrity masked by history. But what followed was the greatest managerial reign football has ever seen. Over 26 years, Ferguson transformed United into a global powerhouse. He didn't just win games, he built dynasties. In total, 38 trophies, which include 13 Prems, 5 FA Cups, 4 League Cups, 2 Champions Leagues, 1 Club World Cup, and countless charity shields and other honours. Ferguson didn't just dominate, he adapted. 3 separate title-winning eras, 3 different tactical systems, 3 different generations of players. He took a chance on Cantona, made him a king. He saw leadership in Roy Keane and shaped him into a warrior. He built United around kids, class of 92, Beckham, Giggs, Scholes, Neville, but everyone doubted him, he didn't. He took a young CR7, raw, flashy, and turned them into a Ballon d'Or winner. He revived the careers of veterans like Sheringham and Schmeichel, and extracted greatness from late bloomers like Evra and Vidic. So what made Ferguson different? First, man management. He ruled the dressing room like a general, but inspired like a father. Second, evolution. From 4-4-2 to 4-5-1 to modern counter-attacking systems. Ferguson changed with the times. Third, ruthlessness. No one was bigger than a club. Not Beckham, not Keane, not Ronaldo. And finally, he never settled. Winning wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the next fight. In 2013, he walked away, leaving United with his 20th league title, a final gift, a final reminder of who he was. But when a giant steps down, someone has to try and fill those shoes. That is where our story begins. Over the next chapters, we will walk through the men who inherited the impossible task, those who dared to follow the greatest. Some stumbled, some came close, all were judged by the same impossible standard. First up, the man handpicked by Sir Alex himself, David Moyes, the chosen one, and the start of a new era at Manchester United. David Moyes, the chosen one, that phrase aged like milk. David Moyes wasn't just picked, he was ordained, endorsed by a dynasty, given the crown by the king himself, and still, he was set up to fail from day one. Yes, because what Moyes inherited wasn't a title-winning machine, it was the last breath of a miracle run, a squad built not for the future, but to send Sir Alex off with one final trophy. Usually, over the years, Alex Ferguson kept recycling the machine. This time, he hadn't done that. Ferdinand Vidic, fading. Evra past his primes. Scholes was gone. Carrick was aging. And the midfield, already a problem for years. But no one said that. They just looked at the Premier League Champions title and expected a repeat. Now let's talk signings, or the lack of them. Moyes asked for Thiago, didn't happen. Tried for Fabregas, didn't happen. Toni Kroos, they all agreed, then pulled. Andrew Herrera, blocked by the board. Who did he get? Fellaini on deadline day. For more than his original release clause. An overpriced panic buy from his former club. That's not ambition, that is sabotage. While Chelsea brought back Mourinho, City were loaded and rolling, Liverpool were on fire with Suarez, Sterling, Sturridge, and Arsenal, they finally broke the bank for Ozil. United still trying to get the best out of Young and an injured RVP. The league moved on. Moyes was trying to install windows in a house with no walls, and yet they were moments. Beating Arsenal 1-0 at Old Trafford, topping the Champions League group, thrashing Leverkusen 5-0 away. Quarterfinals in Europe, he gave us Adnan Januzaj, who at the time looked like the next star. He tried to build, he tried to adapt, but 9 months isn't enough time to do either, because the real story here is that the club didn't believe in its own choice. There was no plan, no sporting director, no structure, just a manager thrown into a machine held together with tape and nostalgia, and when it cracked, they blamed him. Sir Alex got 4 years to win his first trophy. Moyes got sacked before his final season was even over. You want to know if he's a bad manager? Look at West Ham. Stability, a European trophy. He turned Declan Rice into a 100 million midfielder. He's no clown. He just wasn't the right man at a club with no idea what it wanted. David Moyes didn't fail. He was failed. He was never Sir Alex, but that wasn't the job. The job was to follow the impossible and not get devoured. And that's exactly what happened. Ryan Giggs. Ryan Giggs, the eternal number 11, given the reins to the team he gave his life to, with no time, no strategy and no real authority. But let's be honest, this was not a managerial stint. It was a damage control cameo, a symbolic gesture from a club already spiralling. His tactics, minimal. His philosophy, hard to say. He kept things simple, let their players breathe, and tried to look composed while the foundation cracked. But this wasn't about wins and losses, it was about optics. Giggs standing tall in the dugout was the club trying to show that United DNA still meant something, that they still remembered what it was supposed to look like, but under the hood, nothing changed. Just a new face, same chaos. Some say he showed purpose, others say it was pure nostalgia. Either way, he was never given a shot, never back to build, just a temporary bandage slapped on a bullet wound. Ryan Giggs didn't fail, the bounce wasn't real, the plan didn't exist, and before he could settle in, Louis van Gaal was already packing his clipboard. Louis van Gaal's first words as Man United manager were direct and to the point. I am the manager of Manchester United. No promise of titles, no talks of bringing back the free-flowing football United fans had grown accustomed to under Alex Ferguson. Van Gaal's declaration wasn't about selling dreams, it was about a certain control. His vision for United was clear. He wasn't there to be the next Sir Alex. He wasn't there to replicate Ferguson's fiery passion or his intense emotional connection to the club. Van Gaal's approach was about control, discipline, and a tactical framework that reflected his philosophy. When Van Gaal took the reins at United in 2014, the club was in turmoil. He was the manager with a pedigree to rebuild a team in crisis, with a decorated career at Ajax, Barca, and Bayern Munich. He had already made his mark in world football. His style was a far cry from the attacking, fluid football fans had become accustomed to. He insisted on playing out from the back, focusing on positional play, and making sure his team was in a tactical shape. The 4-3-3 system was central to the vision. There was no free-from, high-pressing, gung-ho football. It was structured, disciplined, and controlled. The problem was this: the United faithful had grown used to attacking, quick-paced football. The identity of the club was built on flair, excitement, not slow, deliberate build-up play. He was tasked with rebuilding the squad, and the first steps was a major overhaul. He was given 150 million to spend in his first summer, and he didn't waste any time. He brought in marquee names such as Angel Di Maria from Real Madrid, the Colombian striker Falcao, and defensive reinforcements in the form of Luke Shaw, Marcos Rojo, and Angel Herrera. These signings were supposed to be the cornerstones of Van Gaal's visions, but none of them truly lived up to expectations. Di Maria had arrived with great fanfare, but his time at United was a disaster. He struggled to adapt to the Premier League physicality and tactical demands Van Gaal imposed to him. Falcao, once one of the deadliest strikers in Europe, was far from the player he had been at Atletico or Monaco. Injuries had taken a toll, and while he showed flashes of brilliance, he never settled at Old Trafford. Even Shaw, who had been signed as one of the top young left-backs in Europe, struggled with injuries and form. While Rojo's defensive vulnerabilities became apparent, the squad lacked chemistry, And though his tactics were brilliant in theory, they didn't always translate into consistent performances. The lack of a truly dynamic attacking threat left United fans yearning for the old days. And despite a significant investment, the squad was far from the finished article. Despite the inconsistent results, Van Gaal managed to secure Champions League football in his first season, finishing 4th in the Prem with 70 points. However, this achievement was far from what we had hoped for. A staggering 15 draws in the league, many of them against mid-table and lower tier sides, showed that Van Gaal had stabilised the team, but he had not yet found the formula to return United to attacking verve that had defined the club for decades. The 14-15 season had its positives. The team was more solid defensively, with Van Gaal instilling a disciplined structure that prevented a sort of chaotic defending that had plagued the Moyes era. United conceded just 37 goals, fewer than all but two top teams, Chelsea and City. Yet, despite this defensive stability, the attacking play lacked flair. United only scored 62 goals in the league, a stark contrast to the free-flowing football of their rivals. The football was functional, but it lacked excitement. The 15-16 season saw a slight regression. United finished 5th with 66 points, a step backward from the previous year. Once again, Van Gaal's side was solid defensively, but they struggled in front of goals, scoring just 49 goals in the league. The style of play remained slow and methodical, and although United kept possession, they lacked the cutting edge needed to break down teams. Then came the FA Cup. He managed to secure the first major trophy since Alex Ferguson's retirement, a 2-1 victory over Crystal Palace. United had won the trophy, but the victory wasn't enough to fully silence the critics. The FA Cup is important, yes, but it wasn't the type of triumph that will satisfy a club with the hunger of United. He promised to instill a philosophy to create a team that would play the right way, but the board and the fans were not patient. Results in the league remained flat, and the team's style of play was still far from the free-flowing football United supporters craved. He did not fail at his time at United. He laid the groundwork for a future that was never fully realised. His legacy is one of unfulfilled promise. He is a tactical mastermind, no doubt, but his philosophy is too rigid for a club accustomed to attacking football. The FA Cup win was his saving grace, but it wasn't enough to stave off the inevitable. He didn't fail because his philosophy was wrong, but because the club wasn't prepared to give him the time to make it work. In the end, Van Gaal was left with a squad that had a tactical discipline to compete, but lacked the spark to dominate. The foundation he built was so solid, but the structure needed more time to be fully realised. In the fast-paced world of football, his approach was always going to face resistance, and in the case of United, that resistance came in the form of impatience, a trait that would define the end of his tenure. José Mourinho, the chosen one. Mourinho's appointment at United manager in the summer of 2016 came with the weight of history. After years of mismanagement, the club was desperate for someone who could not only win, but also restore a sense of identity and pride. And remember, Mourinho isn't just any manager. He is the special one, a winner through and through. The man had conquered Europe with Porto, Inter, Chelsea and Madrid. When Mourinho walked into Old Trafford, he did so with an aura of confidence, almost demanded that the club bend to his will. He wasn't here to adapt, he was there to lead. It was time for a manager with a proven track record of winning titles. In summer of 2016, United had finished 5th, the club was in turmoil with no clear direction or style of play. However, Mourinho brought with him a clear vision, one that balanced defence and attack, built on solid foundations, but always with an eye for the next trophy. His philosophy was rooted in results and brought a ruthless mentality that made him successful everywhere he had gone. He inherited a squad that lacked balance and confidence. There were glimpses of quality like Pogba, Rashford and Ibrahimovic, but the team lacked a sense of cohesion and direction. His first transfer window was a statement of intent. He brought in Zlatan, who despite his age was still a world-class striker. He also splashed out £89 million to bring Paul Pogba back to Old Trafford, making him the world's most expensive player at the time. In addition, Mourinho added Mkhitaryan from Dortmund, a player who lit up the Bundesliga with his creativity and vision. While these signings were impressive, Mourinho's immediate impact was felt most in defence. Mourinho's arrival saw a shift towards a more solid, pragmatic approach. Mourinho didn't immediately ask for free-flowing football. Instead, he demanded that his team be disciplined, well-organised and tough to break down, and the results were swift. United won the Community Shield, the EFL Cup, and most impressively, the Europa League in his first season. The 16-17 season marked the beginning of Mourinho's trophy-laden reign. Despite a mixed start, United soon found their feet. During that season, the team played a pragmatic, counter-attacking style of play, with Zlatan scoring goals for fun. The Swede netted 28 goals in all competition, proving that despite his age, he was still one of the deadliest strikers in Europe. He also brought the best out of Paul Pogba, playing him in a more advanced role where he could dictate play. But the highlight of the season was undoubtedly the Europa League. 2-0 win in the final, with goals from Pogba, Mkhitaryan securing the victory. Pictures of Mourinho and Pogba together at the final whistle still hold very dear to United fans, and the victory was crucial because it marked United's return to the competition after a 1-year absence, signalling that Mourinho had already begun to bring the club back to where it belonged. Mourinho's second season at United was about consolidation. The team had won 3 trophies in his first season, and the expectation was that he would continue to improve the squad and build a competitive team for the Premier League title. United finished second place in the Premier League with 81 points, an impressive achievement considering the sheer quality of City that season. City finished with 100 points, breaking numerous records along the way, but United's second place finish was their highest since Alex Ferguson retired. Mourinho had steadied their ship, and he had done so with a team that was defensively sound and competitive in nearly every match. However, despite the solid league finish, Mourinho's style of play came under increasing scrutiny. His pragmatic approach, which focused on counter-attacking and defensive solidity. United were grinding out results, but they were not playing the beautiful football that fans had come to expect. The 18-19 season will prove to be Mourinho's final one at United. The cracks in the relationship between Mourinho and the club's hierarchy began to show. Mourinho had repeatedly asked for reinforcements, particularly a world-class centre-back, but the board failed to back him. United's failure to sign the players Mourinho wanted, combined with the increasing pressure from the media and the fans, created an environment of tension. The failure to sign key players in summer was a major turning point. He made it clear that he needed reinforcements. Despite the frustration, Mourinho still managed to guide United to a decent position in the league, but by December 2018, with the team in 6th place and playing unconvincing football, Mourinho was dismissed. His departure was seen as inevitable, given the increasingly toxic atmosphere between him and the board. However, his sacking was met with mixed feelings. Mourinho had won trophies and brought stability, but his inability to evolve United into a free-flowing attacking force ultimately led to his downfall. When Mourinho spoke about football heritage, he was making excuses. He was telling the uncomfortable truth. He inherited a broken United, a club where the glory days were long gone, but the expectations hadn't moved an inch. A club that had finished 7th, 4th, 5th in the league, that had been knocked out of the Champions League group stages, the round of 16, and hadn't sniffled a serious title race since Alex Ferguson retired. He wasn't just fighting Guardiola's City or Klopp's Liverpool. He was fighting years of bad recruitment, complacency, and a squad that simply wasn't built to compete at the highest level anymore. When Mourinho finished second in 2018 behind a record-breaking City, it wasn't a failure, it was a miracle. When he lifted the Europa League and the League Cup in his first season, it wasn't just silverware, it was dragging United, kicking and screaming, back onto a winning stage. The reality is, José Mourinho didn't ruin Man United, he exposed what it had already become. Football heritage. He warned them, he warned us, and instead of listening, United moved him on, and the same problems stayed. Ole. First off, the vibes merchant accusation is funny, borderline lazy, considering Ole's Man United collected the second most points in the league from December 2018 to the end of 2020-2021 season. Only City did better in that span. So let's ignore that and pretend he was just playing FIFA career mode in real life, right? When he took over, United were a mess. Ole came in not with a magic wand, but with something just as powerful, clarity. He immediately led that team on a 12-game unbeaten run in all competitions, including away wins over Spurs, Arsenal and Chelsea. Yes, the same Ole people mock for was outclassing elite managers with a squad that included a 33-year-old Ashley Young at fullback and a declining Nemanja Matic holding midfield. He made Andrew Herrera look reborn and got Marcus Rashford firing again. Then came Paris, that famous night in March 2019. Down 2-0 on aggregate, a depleted United side travelled to PSG and pulled off a 3-1 win to advance on away goals. No Pogba, a bench stacked with academy kids. That wasn't just vibes, that was tactical setup, mentality, belief. That was one of the most historic comebacks in Champions League's knockout history. And when it came to rebuilding, Ole actually rebuilt. He didn't go out and spend 200 million in one window like Chelsea or City. He went for players who made sense. Bruno Fernandes wasn't just a good buy, he became United's talisman. In the 2019-20 season, Bruno registered 12 goals, 8 assists in just half a season. In his first full season, He had 18 goals and 11 assists in the league alone. That is PlayStation numbers. Let's talk about Greenwood. At 18 years old, he scored 17 goals in all competitions in 2019-20 season. The only other teenager in Europe's top 5 leagues to come close, Erling Haaland. Ole trusted the academy pipeline. He gave minutes to Brandon Williams, gave game time to Elanga, and consistently kept young talent involved in matchday squads. That wasn't lip service. That was United's DNA in action. Ole also brought an identity shift. In the 2020-21 season, United went the entire Premier League campaign unbeaten away from home. 19 games, 0 defeats. Only the 4th team that had ever done that in English top flight history. In Europe, under Ole, United reached the Europa League final in 2021, scored 26 goals in the competition, more than any other side. They beat Sociedad 4-0 away, beat Roma 6-2 Old Trafford. That wasn't just grinding out 2-1 wins, that was attacking football with intent. The Europa League final, yeah, they lost it, but it was on penalties, which is normally a coin toss and does not take away how impressive his side were in that competition. Let's look at league finishes. He came 3rd in 2019 season, 2nd in 2020 season with 74 points, United's highest tally since 2013, and that 2nd place finish was above Klopp's Liverpool, who had just won a title the season before, yet people still downplay it. Under Ole, United had a clear pattern of big games, pragmatic structure and fast transitions. That's how he beat City 4 times in 7 matches, including the 2-0 win at Etihad, where United looked in complete control from the first minute. To beat City 4 times during those seasons was unimaginable, because that City team is not the one that is today. That City team was fearless and won every game nearly. That is the way he knocked out AC Milan and handled Leipzig in the Champions League group stages. Let's not forget the 5-0 away demolition of Bayer Leverkusen in 2013. Oh wait, that was under Moyes. But Ole gave us a 6-2 over Roma, a response to people who thought United lacked attacking spark. And defensively, let's give credit where it's due. United kept 13 clean sheets in the 2020 Premier League season. Harry Maguire, yes, Harry Maguire was one of the league's most consistent centre-backs that year. He started every match until he got injured late in the season. Under Ole, Maguire and Lindelof formed a stable, if unspectacular, pairing, and Luke Shaw had his best season in a United shirt. Even in the transfer market, Ole's decision showed long-term thinking. Matic, Cavani, Bruno, Maguire, Sancho, Varane weren't panic buys. They addressed real needs. His only real flop was Donny van de Beek, but that too was more a problem of fit than talent. He also shifted the culture. Sanchez's massive ages, gone. Lukaku, who didn't want to play under him, gone. He put trust in Martial, Rashford and Greenwood, a fluid, interchangeable front three that often terrorized defenders in transition. At their best, United were devastating on the break. And the fans, Ole brought back a connection. Ole's at the wheel. For the first time in years, there was alignment between the team and the supporters. The chant wasn't just a meme, it was a signal of belief returning. Post-Fergie, no manager earned that emotional buy-in until Ole. Yes, things did fall apart in late 2021. Injuries, Ronaldo's impact on balance, lack of midfield depth, it all caught up. But let's pretend that one bad run undoes nearly 3 years of rebuilding, healing and progression. He left with dignity, no finger pointing, no drama. Honestly, he made the club feel like Man United again. Call him a vibes merchant if you want, but make sure you also say 2nd most league points in his time, Europa League finalist, undefeated away season, youth developer, club stabiliser, 4 derby wins against Pep, restored identity, rebuilt culture, and yes, he made United watchable again. Michael Carrick took charge for 3 matches, just 3, and somehow in those 10ish days, he did more damage control than some managers in other clubs have done in entire seasons. Let's break it down. His first game, beat Villarreal away to qualify for the Champions League knockouts. Second game, drew 1-1 with Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, the European champions at the time, not today's Chelsea. Third game, beat Arsenal 3-2 at Old Trafford in a chaotic thriller where Ronaldo scored a brace and United played with more intent than they had shown in weeks. He benched Ronaldo against Chelsea, something even permanent managers didn't dare to do, and it worked. Tactical bravery and actual game management in crisis. Who knew Carrick had it in him? But more than results, it was the attitude shift. The team looked organised, aggressive in the press, and purposeful in transition. It was the most United had looked in months. Sure, the 3 games is a tiny sample, but if we're giving interim managers grief for messing up in 2 weeks, we should also give them credit when they don't. Carrick walked in, calmed the waters, set the tone, and then walked out gracefully. Class act, cool head, criminally underrated stint. Rangnick's time at Man United was like bringing a mechanic to a Formula 1 team who then spends every press conference saying, yeah, the car's broken, the drivers are questionable, and I'm not sure the pit crew knows how the tyres work. But you know what? He was right. His tenure wasn't about the results, it was about revealing just how deep the rot had gone. No clear structure, no player accountability, no long-term direction. He exposed it all while still somehow managing to get United to a quarter-final in the Champions League. Let's talk about football. Rangnick tried to implement a pressing system with a squad built to sit deep and counter. He did not have the midfielders who could win the ball back consistently, and half the squad was mentally checked out. Still, his focus was long-term. He said United needed open heart surgery and people laughed. Now, years later, every United fan nods in agreement. The things he said then are the talking points of today, and when he left, he didn't sugarcoat a thing. Say you want about the results, but Rangnick's brutal honesty and clear diagnosis were necessary. He was a whistleblower United didn't know it needed, because let's be honest, he was not brought in to be the manager, he was brought in to oversee long-term future for the club. This shows how incompetent United's board have been. When things didn't go to plan, the club didn't seem ready to fully implement the changes Rangnick wanted to make, and his transition to the consultancy role ultimately didn't happen as expected. Instead of being given the time to reshape the club's footballing image, Rangnick was left to deal with significant internal struggles, often working with a squad that didn't fully buy into his methods. But even with this, it's hard to argue that his overall impact was about laying the groundwork for a more structured, modern United, even if it wasn't immediately obvious in the result. He basically handed Ten Hag a binder titled "Everything That's Broken, Good Luck." Erik Ten Hag. When Ten Hag arrived in the summer of 2022, he inherited a team in crisis. The club had just finished 6th with 58 points, their lowest Prem total ever. Players were visibly down in tools, the fan base was fractured, and the rebuild, it was less work in progress and more burnt out husk of a failed experiment. Yet, in his first season, Ten Hag delivered a trophy. Carabao Cup, won, breaking a 6-year drought. FA Cup, finalist, only stopped by peak Guardiola ball. Premier League, finished 3rd, back in the Champions League. Defensive resilience, built a backline that for once didn't look like a training ground for exercise. Oh, and he made Rashford look like prime Thierry Henry for a solid stretch. That alone is a miracle worth lighting candles for. Recruitment, it wasn't perfect, but there was a clear vision. Lisandro Martinez, criticised for his height, turned out to be the most fearless defender the club had ever seen. Casemiro, everyone thought he was coming for a final payday. He ended up being the spine of the midfield. Antony, okay, he spins more than he scores, but he fits the tactical puzzle sometimes. Eriksen, Militia, Sabitzer, smart plug and play signings to fill immediate gaps. But then came the 2023 season, and suddenly the issues, an absurd injury crisis. No Martinez, no Shaw, and no consistent back four for most of the season. Questionable tactical decisions like playing a high line with Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire. An identity crisis in midfield with Mount being shoehorned into roles that made no sense. The Antony experiment continued, but now without the spark. And the Champions League campaign, a historic bottle drop. The most goals scored and conceded in the group stage. Peak chaos. Every manager before him had started a rebuild and been cut off at their knees, either by the board, the players, or the structure around them. Ten Hag's biggest flaw? He started adapting to the chaos rather than forcing the chaos to adapt to him. The no-nonsense disciplinary from Ajax became a manager, constantly firefighting, constantly surviving. From Ronaldo's exit to Sancho's standoff, from ownership chaos to front office turnover, he's dealt with everything but football at times. And despite all that, he still managed to keep United from completely collapsing. What people forget is that a culture shift takes time, real time, not 6 months, not 1 season. Ten Hag brought back standards. He brought back accountability. He made it clear that being at United meant something again, and if you don't match the intensity, you were out. Just ask Ronaldo, ask Sancho, just ask anyone who didn't track back. Even Garnacho. His job wasn't just hard, it was practically impossible. Still, in 2 seasons, he won a trophy, got top 4, and gave United a tactical identity for the first time in years. The biggest criticism that he got at his time there was that people just didn't respect the fact that he kept buying players who had already played for him before. But they all were successful when they played for him before. They all had success when he managed them. So why would you not go back and buy players that can fit a system, and a system that the players that he brought in already knew so well? This is a tactic that a lot of managers have done. When Mourinho took over Chelsea, even though he had all the money in the world, he bought players from Porto. Nobody questioned him then. Ten Hag only did that because he needed players that fit a right tactical system that he needed at the right time. The summer before he got sacked, there were so many rumours that United wanted a new face, a new man to lead. But when Erik won the FA Cup against a prime City, it saved him his job. And even though there were rumours of Thomas Tuchel joining United did the right thing and they stuck with him. But did they back him? No. They half-heartedly left him in control, but they always knew that if he'd messed up, they would pull the plug, because this was a new CEO who wanted his man to be in charge, not a person from the previous regime. Ruud van Nistelrooy might be one of the most unexpectedly competent interim managers Man United has ever had in years. Let's talk about his first proper managerial gig, PSV. In 2022, Ruud took charge of a club in transition. Ajax had just won the league, Feyenoord were resurging, and PSV, they had lost key players during the season and still won the Johan Cruyff Shield, won the Cup, and finished second in the league. This wasn't just vibes and nostalgia. PSV under Ruud were tactically sharp. They played a compact, transitional style, leaning on quick movement, clever pressing triggers, and a flexible front line. His team scored goals. He managed senior players very well. Guys like Luuk de Jong thrived under him, and he integrated youth without throwing them to the wolves. So what went wrong? Ruud left on his own terms just before the season ended. He cited a lack of support from the board, something that might sound oddly familiar to any United fan, but his exit wasn't dramatic, it wasn't toxic, it was professional, and it showed a level of maturity and self-awareness you rarely get from young managers. He was quietly brought in, appointed as assistant coach of Man United in July 2024, a simple 2-year contract meant to work under Erik ten Hag, a legend returning to home, but not with fireworks, more like calm, quiet ambition. Then boom, ten Hag goes, sacked after another horror run. Who steps up? Ruud. Caretaker, interim, whatever label you want, he was in charge. And guess what? He wasn't just decent, he was good. In fact, he was undefeated. First game, a 5-2 demolition of Leicester City. Then, a first European win in 13 months. Then, another 3-0 win over Leicester. Now here's the thing, this isn't some fairy tale comeback story. Ruud didn't cling to the job. When Rúben Amorim arrived, Van Nistelrooy stepped away. No ego, no leaks, no melodramas. That speaks volumes. When Rúben Amorim took the helm at Manchester United in 2024, optimism was cautiously brewing. His impressive stint at Sporting, characterised by a dynamic 3-4-3 system and a Liga Portugal title, suggested a fresh tactical approach for the Red Devils. However, the honeymoon period was brief. Amorim's early matches exposed the squad's frailties. United's backline struggled to adapt to Amorim's high-pressing system. Their lack of cohesion led to conceding goals in crucial moments. Despite creating opportunities, the team often failed to convert. A frustrated Amorim vocalised after a 1-0 loss to Wolves, stating, "We must score to win games." Many pundits and analysts debated Amorim's durability for the Premier League, suggesting his strategies were better suited for the Portuguese league tempo. Reports emerged of dressing room unrest, with some players reportedly struggling to grasp the new tactical demands. However, despite the problems, he is still in a Europa League semi-final as of this video's date. He's also integrated a lot of youth. To conclude, his tenure at Man United right now serves as a cautionary tale of the challenges foreign managers face in the Premier League. We expect them to hit the ground running, but let's give him some time, and we can tell you right now that his tactical acumen is undeniable. He just needs a good backing, a good recruitment strategy, good system around him, and let him be in charge. No matter who you look at, Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, Ole, ten Hag, every single manager after Alex Ferguson has faced the same 3 major problems. Different styles, different eras, but the same core issues. A broken, unbalanced squad. Every manager inherited a team that wasn't built for the future. After years of patchwork recruiting, panic buys, vanity signings, poor scouting, United became a team where the pieces didn't fit together. Managers weren't just coaching, they were firefighting. Moyes tried to keep aging players happy, Van Gaal tried to rip it up and start again, Mourinho added tough veterans, Ole tried to build youth, ten Hag tried tactical precision. But when the foundations are rotten, No style or philosophy can thrive. How it can be fixed? Long-term squad planning, not short-term spending. Build a team cohesive to one identity, not just based on who's available each summer. Number 2, no clear modern football structure. Ferguson wasn't just a manager, he was a football club. After he left, United tried to operate like a normal club without putting real sporting structure in place. No proper director of football, no elite scout network, no long-term football brain trust. Managers were left isolated, having to negotiate transfers, deal with agents, and play politics on top of coaching. It's no wonder so many broke under the pressure. How it can be fixed? Empower the right football people. The manager should coach, the football department should build and support the vision. The board should get out of football decisions entirely. Number 3, unrealistic expectations and media chaos. Every manager faced the ghost of Ferguson hanging over them. Every bad run wasn't just a bad form, it was proof the club was finished. Every win wasn't progress, it was a United are back headline. No manager was allowed to grow naturally. They were either saviour or villain after every result. Constant leaks, toxic dressing rooms, social media pressure. It became almost impossible for managers to build something quietly over time. How it can be fixed? Patience. Real hard patience. Accept that rebuilding a broken giant takes years, not transfer windows. Give managers time to fail, adjust and grow. The way Ferguson himself was given over 5 years before he truly won everything. The truth is, it was never just about one manager. It was about a broken system that chewed up, spat out every man brave enough to take a job. Until Man United fixed their foundation, no builder, no matter how talented, could have built a dynasty. One key step that United can take to get out of this rut in a few years' time is building on its promising young players. They have Kobe Mainoo. He's already a star, insane football IQ, press resistant, mature beyond his years, could be a midfield cornerstone. Garnacho, direct, fearless, clutch moments ready, can develop into a world-class winger with the right coaching. Højlund, raw but powerful, improving fast, could easily be a 20 plus goals per season striker in 2 to 3 years. Kamvala, physically dominant, composed, promising performances and limited chances. Needs polishing but real potential. Also in the youth academy, Dan Gore. He's a tough, tidy passer, needs physical development but could grow into a squad regular. Ethan Whitley, just breaking through, strong frame, instinctive finisher. Harry Amas, England youth international, early signs of being a future first team fullback if developed properly. In short, Man United's future isn't hopeless, it's just young, raw and badly in need of protection, patience and a plan. When you spent over a decade being mid, it's natural to look at the managers and blame them for everything. And for sure, some decisions were questionable at best. But the truth is, even if you gave United to a prime Sir Alex Ferguson fresh out of 99, or a prime Mourinho out of Porto Inter, or a Guardiola post Barcelona, he will have struggled too. Because the problems were, and still are, way bigger than who's sitting in a dugout. Let's start straight at the top, the ownership. The Glazers brought United by using Man United's own money. An absolute genius business move if you're a cartoon villain. Not so great if you're trying to stay competitive at a top level of football. Then there was Ed Woodward, the marketing wizard, who somehow convinced everyone that being good at signing noodle sponsors also meant you were good at signing midfielders. Spoiler, he wasn't. Woodward treated transfer windows like a PR stunt. United's strategy wasn't, what does the team need? It was, who's the biggest name we can sign to boost the stock price? Hence, why we got Alexis Sanchez playing piano instead of an actual functioning midfield. And when United did spend, they spent like a kid on Ultimate Team. £1 billion thrown at random players, no clear plan, no consistent style, just a revolving door of short-term fixes and last-minute panics. Meanwhile, other clubs were building proper structures. City created a footballing empire behind the scenes. Liverpool hired smart analysts and data people. United, they gave Mike Phelan a new contract after he spent 3 games thanks to Ole and nothing. There was no sporting director until 2021. No coherent scouting model, no consistent recruitment philosophy. Every new manager had to basically start from scratch, dragging a squad full of players signed for 17 different systems. Then there's the culture. Leaks from the dressing room were more common than clean sheets. Managers didn't just have to manage games, they had to manage egos, social media accounts and journalists getting fed inside information after every bad result. It wasn't just a toxic environment, it was a nuclear wasteland by the time some of these managers got their hands on it. So yes, every manager made a mistake, some bigger than others. It's like blaming the captain of the Titanic without mentioning the iceberg. And trust me, at United, there were a lot of icebergs. At Man United, It was never about bad managers, it was about a broken club, and sometimes it takes a little unpopular defense to remind people of that. Levy, Tottenham Hotspur evolved from an afterthought to a global powerhouse, elite infrastructure, unmatched stability, financial power without moral compromise, and yet people still want to crucify the only man who built the foundations they now take for granted.